All right, welcome back to today's Market From the Booster and trial attorney David Besh. We have a new guest joining us today, Anthony DiPietro from the DiPietro law firm. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Hi, David.
All right, so we're going to be discussing sexual abuse laws in New York City. Always a timely topic. And maybe we could just start by giving the viewers a little bit of a refresher as to what are the sexual abuse laws in New York City.
Sure. So, I've been in this space, David, for the past 11 years. And over that course of time, my clients have taken the lead in passing 4 separate laws in the state of New York related specifically to sexual exploitation and abuse cases. So, for example, in Manhattan, right, we have the Gender Motivated Violence Act. That has been on the books since early 2000. At some point, it was on life support because judges weren't quite understanding what it meant. It's been modified recently. And in fact, there's a look-back window that's been created that now provides anyone who is a victim or survivor of gender-motivated violence with a look-back period, no matter how long ago the exploitation or the abuse happened. They now have a path to justice. They can file a civil case, and it can't be dismissed based on statute of limitations grounds. Similarly, in the state of New York, the Adult Survivors Act was passed. It went into effect last Thanksgiving. It'll remain open until this coming Thanksgiving, 2023. And any adult who is subjected to sexual exploitation and abuse in the state of New York, no matter how long ago it happened, they too can file a case, and it can't be dismissed based on statute of limitations grounds.
What would be an example of that type of lawsuit?
Sure. So look, the obvious one, right, is any form of rape, clearly, right? But beyond that, what we're seeing with these institutions, and specifically my niche, happens to be cases that involve physician-patient sexual exploitation and abuse. And, there's 2 things about those cases that are unique, and a lot of people don't quite understand. Number one, the exploitation that's committed by physicians is not obvious, right? If it was obvious, then it would happen once, and that would probably be it, because the patient would put an end to it immediately. But these physicians take all their knowledge, their training, their expertise, and they use it for evil. They use it in ways to exploit patients, and often the patients don't even know it. For example, if you look at what happened, with the Larry Nassar case with the gymnast, Nassar was abusing a bunch of those girls while their parents were in the room. Okay, so these predators have figured out a way to normalize things that aren't normal. And so they pass off sexual exploitation and abuse as a form of medical care. And I'm grateful for everyone that's come forward, that's helping hold these predators accountable. And in particular, the second part is if you look at what's happened at Michigan State, Columbia University, near Presbyterian, the institutions always know what these predators are doing. But instead of protecting patients, instead of reporting these predators to the state like they're required to do, instead they cover it up, they gaslight, and they lie to patients and expose more unsuspecting patients to further abuse.
What have we been doing as a society to protect those individuals?
Yeah, so I can tell you, historically, we have not done enough. We are at the very early stages of a long overdue cultural shift with regard to not just how sexual exploitation and abuse cases are treated, but with regard to how they're talked about. Historically, this was a very, sensationalized topic. And I am just grateful that the people that have been coming forward recently have figured out a way to sort of thread the needle, right? And talk about these cases in ways where they can't just be dismissed. I understand, as humans, a lot of people are judgmental. It's human nature, and if a survivor comes forward and if she's too emotional, she's dismissed because, she's just being weepy and too emotional. Or if she's angry, then she's dismissed as being militant. You know, recently we've seen people coming forward and talking about this in a way that they can't just be tuned out because of their tone, because of how they're talking about it. And I'm so grateful for that. We're in the very early stages of this right now, but I'm glad that that cultural shift is happening finally.
Juries seem to be sympathetic to this area of the law, because these are easily jury trials, am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, and so
juries are more sympathetic than not to the victims, or is there something else sometimes that you see?
Well, so look, I always address this when I'm on trial, right? I don't go to court looking for sympathy. If I had to depend on sympathy to win a case, I probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. I'm there because the cases have merit. And I think what's important is that as advocates, as attorneys, as trial lawyers, we learn the language. We learn how to explain these concepts to people that might not understand it. You know, often when there's news about, you know, a doctor assaulting a patient, the response is, oh, well, I would have kicked him in the face or thrown a chair at him and ran out. Well, the reality is no, people won't or wouldn't, because it's not obvious. Everything that's being done is deceptive.
They leave the office when they only realize it later on. When they leave, it could be months or even years later do they realize what went on. Am I correct?
Sure. Well, let me give you an example. I think there are thousands of women in New York right now who don't know that they were sexually exploited by a predator OBGYN. And people are going to say, well, how's that possible? Well, I'm going to tell you. One of the things that he would do to women is they would come in, they would get a pap smear, and they'd come back for the results, and he'd be looking at a piece of paper and say, oh, wow, well, for your condition, you got to come back and see me every 2 or 3 months for a pap smear. And they're assuming, oh my God, do I have cancer? Do I have pre-cancer? This guy's so thorough. This is great. And they come back every 2 to 3 months for a pap smear for years. I have clients that have undergone 5, 6, 7 pap smears a year. What I've learned after getting their medical records is their condition that he's bringing them back for was simply that they were in their early 20s and were having normal pap smears. There was zero medical reason to do that. He just wanted access to their bodies. But the patients don't know the standard of care, right? And so they're just trying to be a good, compliant patient and follow the doctor's orders.
You can't ask for sympathy so much when we're trial attorneys. But do you find that more victims are coming forward and it's the area of the law that is relevant?
Absolutely. More people are coming forward. And I don't know, especially in the area of doctor sexual exploitation and abuse cases, I don't know if it's because there's more of that now, right, than when I was a kid, or if it's because people are more open to talking about it. I don't know, but I am grateful for every person that has come forward. And that's, sexual exploitation and abuse thrives in dark and quiet places. And I am grateful for these clients who are willing to come forward and help us drag these things into the light and talk about it, right? Because that's how we gain power over it. That's how we win. That's how we change this culture for the benefit of our kids, grandkids, and generations to come.
We leave there. Great advice. And certainly we want to know where to reach out to you. Maybe you can give us a phone number somewhere where we can get you if we need to.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on. If anyone has questions, feel free to give me a call at 212-233-3600 or visit us at atdlaw.com.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to take care.
Thanks, David.
Today's work, there's so much more right after this.